What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another PS4 video. So with Elden Ring now runnable on jailbroken PS4s comes the ability to mod the ever-loving crap out of it. So of course we've had Lappy, who has ported over the easy mod for Elden Ring, and now we also have patches by Illusion to enable things like higher frame rates, lower resolutions, and even proper frame pacing as well. So I'm going to get into showing you exactly how to install these patches, because it's not just Elden Ring. These apply to dozens of other games, not just other From Software titles, but many other games as well are supported. Illusion has a huge database of patches that you can apply to dozens of games to do things like lower the resolution and fix the frame rates and, increase frame rates to get 60 FPS. So we're going to get into how to exactly install these patches here in this video. So let's take Elden Ring as an example. So Elden Ring by default runs at a locked 30 FPS on base PS4s. However, it does have a improper frame pacing issue. So as you can see, there are these stutters that happen every so often, and it makes for not a very smooth experience. Now, the PS4 Pro on Elden Ring runs at a unlocked frame rate. However, it doesn't achieve anywhere near 60 FPS. We're talking about sort of the mid 40s in indoor sections, and then outside we're talking about it only reaching slightly higher than 30 FPS, round about the mid 30s most of the time when you're in the open world. So not a great experience either, not very smooth. So there's a few different patches that Illusion's created here that can fix the game in various different ways. So for one, we have the 1080p patch for PS4 Pro that will lower the maximum resolution on the PS4 Pro down to 1080p. But of course, with the unlocked frame rate, it can achieve 60 FPS in some indoor sections, and usually sort of mid 40s to maybe the low 50s in the outdoor open world segments of the game. Now on base PS4, you can install a resolution patch to patch the game to 720p resolution and unlock the frame rate so that you can achieve frame rates round about the low 50s to mid to high 40s in indoor sections, and then maybe the high 30s to mid 40s in the outdoor open world sections of the game as well. So that is also an option. Now, in addition to that, there's also the frame pacing fixes as well. So for example, you can install the frame pace fix, and then on PS4 Pro, without touching the resolution, so keeping the native resolution on PS4 Pro, you can achieve a solid 30 FPS because it locks the frame rate to 30 FPS even on PS4 Pros, and fixes the frame pacing issues. So as you can see, we have a perfectly smooth experience right there, locked at 30 FPS on PS4 Pro. And then on base PS4, you can install the same frame pacing fix, which does fix the frame pacing issues. However, you still get the occasional stutter because the base PS4 is struggling to maintain that 30 FPS lock. So what you can do to get the perfectly smooth experience on base PS4 is you can install the 900p resolution patch as well, which only lowers the resolution a little bit, but it will maintain a solid 30 FPS with no drops, as you can see right here. Perfectly smooth experience. So you have all of these options. You also have the option to install the developer menu or debug menu for Elden Ring as well. And you can also install the skip intro logo patch, which will remove the intro logos when the game is loading up so that you can get into the main menu faster. Now, of course, there are some pre-made patches that are already made for you that you can just install directly onto the game that will have the, high frame rate patch already applied, for example. However, it's likely that it may not have the exact configuration that you're looking for, or if you're trying to do a different game other than Elden Ring, then it's possible that these pre-made patches might not be available in your case. So that's why I'm going to show you how to apply these patches yourself manually. That way you can choose the exact configuration that you want to install. So that's what we're going to cover here in this video. So let's dive right into this. Okay, so before we get started, you're going to need to download a couple of things. Firstly, if you go to Illusion's blog, I'll have the link down in the video description. Go to the install instructions and click the button here to download pyPatch. And you'll also need to download Self-Util by dmiller423. And Retro Gamer has released a handy exe version of it that you can download. Again, all the links will be down in the video description. And you'll also need to download the latest version of Patch Builder, which will be 1.3.3 in the description, not 1.3.2. So we're going to go ahead and download all three of those right here to the computer. Then you're also going to want to make sure you have the package files. So you want the game package file here and the 1.05 update. You can do this with the base game as well. If you don't have the 1.5 update, it's fine. But obviously, it's better to use the latest version that you can run. So we're going to do this for the 1.05 patch. So we've got the fake package version of the game and the game update. So now that we've got that, we are all set. So what we need to do now is run Patch Builder. So once it opens, we're then going to grab the game update 1.05 and drag that inside, and then click Extract Package. Then again, it may take a little while to load all the files. Elden Ring, the game, and the update have a ton of files in there, so it takes a little while to open. But once it opens here, we're just going to select all of the files. Now, if you're doing this with the base game and not a game update, so if you've loaded the base game package file in here instead of the update, then you only want to extract a few particular files and folders. You want to extract the SC0 folder, the eboot.bin, and then also if you scroll up, you also want to extract the SCE system folder as well. So SCE system, SC0, and eboot.bin if you're doing the base game package. But if you're doing a game update like 1.05, you want to select all files. So all files, since I'm doing the 1.05 update, and then we're going to export this, and I'm just going to export it to my USB drive. So we're going to hit export files, and you can see here it's created the folder, and it's now extracting all the game files for this update into that folder. Okay, so now that we have the game update extracted, you can see we have our eboot.bin, which is the main executable file for the game. Now, most games use eboot.bin as their main executable. Some games might have a different name, but most of the time it's eboot.bin. So now that we have that extracted, we can go ahead and open up our pyPatch and create a new folder on the desktop called pyPatch. And then, of course, we're going to extract the files here into that folder. And now we can go ahead and run this little utility by Illusion. So we open this up, and it's going to first of all ask us, do you want to download from the database? We're going to type in Y for yes, and that'll download all the latest patches. Then it's going to ask, what is the path for your executable file? So in this case, it's going to be our eboot.bin. So if we select the eboot.bin here and click this button under Home to copy as path, which will copy the file path, then we can right click to paste it in. So I hit enter here, and then it says pick file from folder patch 0. So we're going to select that option, and then it's going to give us all the different patches. So we're going to scroll down to Elden Ring using the arrow keys, and then enter on Elden Ring to select it. And then you can see we get an error message here. It says the eboot.bin is invalid. Make sure it's a valid dump of a retail disk digital and not a fake package title. So it's kind of saying like it needs to be a dump of an actual original game, not a fake package game. And that is because the eboot.bin is encrypted, and we need a decrypted eboot.bin in order for it to patch successfully. So we need to decrypt our eboot.bin. Now, there's a few different ways to do this. Okay, so to decrypt the eboot.bin, we're going to use the self-util program right here. You want to make sure you're using self-util.exe, not the older unfself.exe, because it actually corrupts the eboot on Elden Ring, which will result in you getting a CE error when you try and launch it with the patch installed. So you don't want to use that. You want to be using self-util.exe. So all we need to do is drag the eboot.bin on top of self-util.exe and then run. And there we go. And what it will do here is it will create this eboot.elf file. So we now have eboot.bin and eboot.elf, and the elf file is obviously the decrypted version. So all we're going to do is delete the eboot.bin and then rename the elf file to .bin. So it has the same name as the original eboot. So we now have our decrypted eboot. So if you run into an issue where self-util is not able to decrypt your executable for whatever game you're doing, you can use FTP instead. If you run the actual FTP payload on the PS4 and connect to it with FileZilla, you can enter a custom command, the decrypt command, in uppercase characters, and that will enable self-decryption. From there, you can just go into the sandbox directory, find your game, go in there while the game is running, and then you can access the eboot.bin and you can just copy it out to your computer, and it will automatically decrypt it as it's copying it out to the computer. And now we can head back on here. We'll press any key to exit on pyPatch and we'll load it up again. So we'll run pyPatch a second time. We'll say yes to update the database. What's the location of the executable file? So again, we'll copy it as path and paste it in. Press enter, pick from a list, We're going to select the Elden Ring patch again. And as you can see, no error message this time because our eboot.bin is decrypted. And now you can apply whatever patch you want. Now these first patches you can see are for game version 1.00. So if you're doing the base game, you want to apply the patches that are for 1.00. But of course, we're on 1.05. So if you scroll down, you can see there's more patches here for 1.05. So we'll just expand that a little bit. So let's see. So in this case, I'm on a PS4 Pro, but I'll also apply some patches for the base console as well. So let's say that we want to do the 60 FPS patch and try and push as high a frame rate as possible. So in that case, we're going to do the 60 FPS patch for base console. You select using the spacebar to select. And so we're going to select that option. And then let's say we also want the resolution patch 720p. So lower the resolution so we can push a higher frame rate on base PS4s. And then also for PS4 Pros, I'll select the 1080p option, which will also allow the PS4 Pro to push higher frame rates. So we'll do that. So we've got high frame rates on base PS4 and PS4 Pro with this patch. And I'll also enable the debug menu as well. And I'll also enable the skip intro logos so that we can get into the main menu faster. So that's essentially what you want to enable if you want the high frame rates. If you want the proper frame pacing, then we would disable these options and instead we would go for the 30 FPS fix for proper frame pacing and probably the 900p patch for the base PS4s so that it can maintain a consistent 30 FPS with proper frame pacing. But in my case, I'm going to push for the higher frame rate. So I'm going to do the 60 FPS patch here and the resolution 720p and the 1080p for PS4 Pro. And we are good to go. So once you've selected the patches that you want, you just hit enter and it will apply those patches to the eboot. Now it doesn't overwrite the eboot in its initial location. So you need to go into the pyPatch folder and there'll now be the eboot.bin-patched folder. And in here you have the patched executable. So all we need to do here is copy that one over to the USB drive and overwrite the previous eboot.bin that was in there. And we now have the patched version now applied to our files. So all we need to do now is repackage these game files back into a package file that we can install onto the game. So to do this, we're just going to head back out to our USB drive, open up Patch Builder again, and this time we're just going to drag in the image0 folder here into our project location. And then once we've done that, we also need the path to the original game package file, which is this one right here, the main game package file, the 29.4 gigabyte one. We're going to copy that one in there. And then we can also edit the patch notes as well and add some additional patch notes here. So I'll add 60 FPS patch and I'll add that into the patch notes. And then we can go ahead and click build package, which will build the game update. And there you go. You can see it's now building the package file, our modified version of the 1.05 update. If you're doing the base game, by the way, and not a game update, then it will automatically increment the game version to 1.01 so that you can, patch the game with your custom patch. Okay, so now that that's done, we can go ahead and copy this into the root of our USB drive so we can install it on the PS4. I'll also rename it to 60 FPS patch, just so we can easily identify it. And then we're going to go ahead and eject that drive and plug it into our PS4 and install the patch. Okay, so back onto the PS4, we're going to hit the PS button. And then, of course, we'll close Elden Ring here and install the patch. So we're going to head into Gold Hen, Package Installer, or Debug Settings, Game Package Installer, and then install the 60 FPS patch. And we're going to say yes to overwrite. Because it's the same game version as 1.05, it's going to overwrite 1.05, but because it has all the game files from 1.05 included, then we're just reinstalling 1.05 again, but we have the patches applied as well. Okay, there we go. Patch has been successfully installed, so we can hit the PS button, we can hit options, and then go to update history, and you can see we have our custom patch notes added there in the top left, 60 FPS patch. So that has been applied. So now we can run the game and see if all of the patches that we applied here are working. So the first thing that we should notice is that we don't get the logos popping up anymore, the intros. It just goes straight into the main menu screen so we can get into the game faster. So that's what we want right there. So I'll go ahead and create a new game I can definitely tell this is running at 1080p, not 4K. Or 3200 by 1800 is the default resolution on PS4 Pro, the max resolution. Whereas this is now changed to 1080p, so 1920 by 1080. But yeah, I can feel, as I'm panning around here, I can feel how much smoother that is. It's definitely running at a higher frame rate. So yeah, we have the patch applied. We also have the debug menu that we selected as well. So if I hit options and I go down below system, there is an extra option underneath system, as you can see there. And if I select it, it opens up the debug menu. As you can see, there's a lot of different options there in the debug menu that you can play around with as well. If you want to enable that, then you have that option. Again, it is better to know how to apply the patches yourself, like we just did, because then you can do this on any other game. You can select exactly what patch you want to apply, what options you want, and you also have the ability to now take this knowledge and apply it to any other game that is supported by Illusion. So any of Illusion's other patches you can now install for many, many other games in the exact same way as we just did here for Elden Ring. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you guys in the next one.